Hey everybody, Patrick Kirby here from Do Good Better Consulting. Hey, it's the end of the year and there are probably some donors who you want to activate and make sure they give to you by the end of the year. But what if you need a little extra, I don't know, little pull, little tug at maybe their financial strings rather than just their heartstrings? I've got some great news for you because the CARES Act that was signed into law this year to help with COVID relief had a little bonus for our nonprofit friends, and that is a $300 tax credit off the top of your taxes this year. And it's great, but I don't know necessarily everything about taxes. So I got my friend, Jeremy Ulmer from Brady Martz and Associates to tell us about all things taxes. Jeremy, how are you?
Hey, Patrick, doing well. Thanks for having me on board.
I am appreciative of you. Whenever I have a tax question and whenever I have an audit question, I always go to you and the friends at Brady Martz. And so, of course, I had a question about this to explain it in the most simple terms on how we can activate some donors at the end of the year and get their tax benefits. So, Jeremy, if you can kind of give me an explainer, a real 5,000-foot view on what this tax opportunity is for people who want to give towards the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. So I've been doing the public accounting thing for 22 plus years now. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great nonprofits. That's kind of the space I work in. And if there's a tax law out there that's going to allow for benefits to them, I'm all for it. So let's talk a little bit, like Patrick said, about this deduction versus a credit, what the CARES Act actually is implemented. So what it allows is those that are filing their taxes that do not itemize their deductions, those that just take the standard deduction, they can take what's called an above the line deduction worth $300. Now, this actually isn't a new deal or a new concept in the tax world. It actually was implemented in the early 80s and then sunset in 1986, I believe. So the CARES Act actually, in the way I read it, is put this in play as a permanent amendment to that tax code from 1986 to allow this $300 above the line deduction, which we all know can change with the flip of a switch with legislation. But as for now, those non-itemizers can take a $300 deduction.
And most people don't itemize now anyway, because I mean, the majority of people are not going to get to that amount that is necessary to itemize because of the tax law that was passed a couple of years ago. You just take a flat deduction across the board. And so this is to encourage additional individuals to donate so that you can even if you're not itemizing, you can still use this as a taxable thing, right?
Yes, that's correct. The standard deduction is quite high now. A couple of years ago, with that tax law change, it's $12,400 for a single and double that, $24,800 for a married couple. And yes, and as I was doing a little prep for this podcast, I found that 90% of people actually do not itemize deductions. So if 90% of the people are out there could spend $300 to help the charity of their choice, man, that could go a long ways.
And I think that's really what the purpose of this law was to do, or this little addition to the law, is that because people were not going to be itemizing, and I think that was the fear in the nonprofit world, is to say, oh, if they're not itemizing, they're not going to be giving. If they don't need a deduction, they don't get anything for it. Not most, most individuals don't give for a tax deduction purpose. Most of them give because they love the nonprofit, but if you are looking for a little leg up in conversations with your donors towards the end of the year, what a great piece of conversation to have, which is this little tax credit. So can you talk to me about how I would have a conversation with a donor about what this means in practical terms for what $300 is and what they're going to get back or what they're going to get to deduct off of their taxes? And kind of maybe give an example so that when you're sort of talking to people who are potential donors, this might be a great thing to start with.
Sure. Yep. So it has to be a qualified charity. So if you would think some of the local ones like the YWCA, Homeward Animal Shelter, Arbor Moorhead Community Theater, some of those that are 501c3 charities would all be eligible for this deduction. They would be happy to take your contributions. They will provide you with a receipt which the IRS says that anything over $250 should be substantiated. So you don't have to attach it to your tax return, but keep that receipt in hand just in case. A couple other things I want to point out, Patrick, is it is a $300 limit for filing. So if you're single, you can deduct the $300. If you're married and filing joint, it's also $300. It's not a $600 deduction in that case. But I just want to make sure that's clear. And another nuance for this is it has to be in cash. Cash check, it just can't be a non-cash donation. You can't take $300 worth of old clothes to the Goodwill store and get your receipt and count that as your $300. So it has to be a cash contribution.
Perfect. I like that. Excellent. And what does that mean? So let's just say if I give $300 to the charity of my choice, what does that mean in numbers? Let's just say randomly I'm a 22% tax rate level. What does that mean for me?
Sure. If you're in a 22% tax bracket, a $300 donation would equate to $66 federal tax. Of course, there might be a little state there too. Again, we're not talking huge dollars here, but in a time of crisis, it can make a difference for both the donor and the donee.
Absolutely.
And I think
dollar's a dollar and a donation is a donation, and anything that you can do to have a conversation with the donor, I think is super important. And this gives you an excuse to call. It says, have you used your above the line tax deduction this year? Let's talk about it and let's see what we can do for your end of year giving plan. And if you haven't, let us help you get a little extra deduction at the end of the year as part of your taxes, and you get to help a great charity of your choice and help a nonprofit that you are in love with as well. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always get a hold of me here at Do Good Better Consulting. You can always get a hold of Jeremy over at Brady Martz to answer your questions on how this can be done, whether you have a conversation with the donor or have a tax question. That's why we're here to help, friends, is to try to do a little good this holiday season. Jeremy, thank you so much for trying to explain this kind of stuff to us. This makes perfect sense to me. I hope it makes perfect sense to you. Any questions in the comments, of course, and then how do we get a hold of you, Brady or Jeremy over at Brady Martz, if we have some questions we want to get a hold of you?
Sure. Feel free to call the office number, 701-280-2100, 280-2100.
Easy.
Otherwise, you can find me on our website. My email is jeremy.ulmer@bradymartz.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this.
I love it. Thanks for always being there when I have really complicated questions and making it very easy to understand. I appreciate you, Jeremy. Thank you very much. So, hey, go out there and grab your donors by the hand and lead them to a nice little tax deduction at the end of the year. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, hey, great excuse to go and give a bunch of your donors a call now at the end of the year. Use it to your advantage, my friends. Thanks for stopping by. And if you have any questions, let us know. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.